Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In the previous episode, we looked at the premeditation texts, those texts sent between Watts and Cody Roberts on Sunday night, the 12th of August. Today, we're also going to look at texts sent on the 12th of August, but between Watts' mistress, Nichol Kessinger, and her best friend, Charlotte Nelson. And we're going to start looking at that from kind of an unusual perspective. We're going to start by looking at Charlotte Nelson, finding out a little bit more about her. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. Okay, so we are on page 697 of the discovery documents, and this is a report written by Agent Kevin Kobach, and he's going to be referring to Charlotte Nelson, okay, in his report. And we're going to pick it up at this section over here, where, now this is Agent Kobach speaking to Nichol Kessinger about Charlotte Nelson. And we're going to get to Charlotte's text in a second. But let's first just deal with Charlotte Nelson in the words of Nichol Kessinger to Agent Kevin Kobach. She says that he asked her about the text messages conversation she had with Charlotte Nelson. And then Kobach says, I specifically asked what she meant by his children making her uncomfortable. And we're going to go to those specific texts in a moment. So this is quite critical. On the 12th of August, on the Sunday, on the very last Sunday that all three members of the Watts family that would lose their lives while they were still alive, hours before their deaths, Kessinger is communicating to her best friend that allegedly, according to Kobach here, what did you mean by that his children made you feel uncomfortable? And as I say, we're going to refer to the exact texts. But think about this. As late as the last day of their lives, Chris Watts' mistress is telling her best friend something about the fact that Chris Watts is a father, that he's got children, right? And I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to sort of ask, if you have a situation where someone's having an affair and you really like the person that you are in the affair with, right? But you have no children and the other person's got 3 children or 2 children, is that going to affect your opinion, your sense of how much you want this relationship? Of course it is. I'm in that situation myself where I don't have any children, and I was in a situation not that long ago where I met someone I really liked who had 2 children, 2 young children, and I sort of felt, wow, that's quite a lot to take on, you know. If you think about it, what is weird about our society is, you know, it's quite a shocking thing if there's an unplanned pregnancy, if you involved with someone that you love and then they fall pregnant by accident. That's like quite a big deal. Even if it's someone that you were sleeping with, right? But you didn't plan on the pregnancy, but then there's a pregnancy. That's quite a big deal. Think about how much more of a big deal it is if you meet someone you really like and they say, by the way, I've got 2 children, and they're not yours. Oh, is that not a big deal? That's like 2 unplanned pregnancies, except it's unplanned from your perspective. It's obviously the other person's children, but it is actually quite a big deal. And I think it's something that's underestimated in our society today, where in the beginning you think it's not a big deal. Well, it turns out to be a big deal. It may be a big deal further along the line for the children themselves, and it may be quite a big deal for the parent of those children and the relationships they have between each other. And where are you going to fit into that in terms of that dynamic? So that is what they're discussing on this Sunday. Nichol said she wants her own family. And that's a completely normal feeling. And if you think about it just in a fair way, no matter how much you dislike Nichol Kessinger, no matter what your feelings are towards Nichol Kessinger, her feeling, well, you know what, I'm not really sure if this affair is the ideal situation. I'm not sure if I really want to be involved with this married guy with kids. I kind of like my own family. That's an absolutely healthy, wholesome kind of response. I'd prefer to do things in the, let's say, quote, right way, right? And then she told Kobach she never said anything about him about his wife or children being a problem. Do you believe that? So I don't think she said you need to get rid of your wife or you need to get rid of your children. I think she may have said something more along the lines of you need to leave your wife, or you need to move out, or you need to reassure me that this divorce is happening, that because you keep going back to your wife, you keep going back home, how are we going to be able to have a relationship if you need to move out? And so in that sense, it's not that they are a problem, it's a sense that him being with them is a problem from her perspective. She never said to him his kids were an issue. That's also not strictly speaking accurate, because there was a conversation where she told him, I want to be first in your life. I want to be first. I want to be the priority. And so what does that say indirectly? I mean, if you've got children and your kids are your priority, and you say, well, I want to be a priority, right? There's definitely going to be a bit of a tug of war there. She said she was thinking about building her own life and that he already had a life. And that's all things that came through in those texts, right? And that resonates with exactly what she said in her email to him, which I think we dealt with in a previous video, just where she said in her email something along the lines of, I'm looking to build a beautiful life or a beautiful future. Right? And I think she definitely looked at his life, the veneer of it anyway, and said, I want that. I want the white picket fence and the American dream in terms of the picture perfect happy family, right? She said she never said anything about kids damaging their relationship. I think that's true. She said there was never a conversation with Watts that he may have thought she was making reference to Shanann or his children being a problem. I think that's a little bit simplistic, because they were talking about Shanann's spending habits and the finances of the Watts family. And I think that was a problem. I don't think it was Kessinger just saying in a very unambiguous way, listen here, your wife and children are a problem for me. I don't think she said that. I do think it was more nuanced in the sense of we housebroke, we don't have money. And so there was a kind of mutual acknowledgement, I think, between Watts and Kessinger that there was a problem. And what was the cause of it? What was the source of it? Nichol said she was 100% committed to Watts at this time, but was not sure if he was the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. Now, this came through on Sunday afternoon. So this sense of, I'm not sure about this guy. Now, think about how this is a bit of a mismatch. I'm 100% committed to you, but I'm also not sure. I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life with you. It's difficult to know what to make of this, given that she Googled wedding dresses and Googled something about man says he will leave his wife to be with his mistress, something like that. It's also not clear what to make of the fact that she allegedly gave him a key to her apartment on the 8th of August. I think that's according to what he said to Sherilyn Cadle. And that does show a commitment. But think about it like this. If she's committed to him, but she's concerned about his family, then isn't that going to communicate to him, from his perspective, I need to do something about my family. I need to reassure her. I need to remove the obstacles to us being together. And this is where the whole narcissism debate, I feel, falls flat, is where you say, what does a narcissist do? He's very selfish. He just does whatever he wants. He only thinks about himself, right? It's all about him, kind of thing. I'm just talking about a classic narcissist setup, classic narcissist psychology. And I believe Chris Watts committed this crime not because Nichol said, please kill your family, but because in his mind, getting rid of his family was what Nichol wanted. Not killing them, getting rid of them, but getting them out of the picture, clearing them out of the way, clearing them out of the narrative. And so in a weird way, he wasn't doing it because he wanted to do it. In other words, he didn't kill his family because he was like, I want to kill my family. He killed them because he was like, that will make me acceptable to her, I think. Does that make sense? In other words, he did it in a way to satisfy her, for her, even though she didn't actually ask him to do it. It was his inference of what she wanted in a kind of indirect way. Obviously, she wanted him to be divorced, and he was making it like that, except, it wasn't a divorce. But can you see how it's not him doing what he wants? In a way it is, because he wants to be with Kessinger, but he's doing what he thinks she wants so that they can be together. And I think there's a difference between that. Nichol said she cared about Watts and his children and always found the children cute, having said that she never even met the children. Nichol said Chris never mentioned getting rid of the kids and always discussed them moving with him when she got a new apartment. Okay, I think we need to move beyond this now, back to Charlotte Nelson. That's really who and what we want to talk about. So if we go to the next reference, it is on page 712 of the Discovery documents. And this is an interview by Stacey Galbraith. And it's an interview by phone, right? And on the 5th of September, which is quite late in the investigation, Stacey Galbraith was asked to speak to Charlotte Nelson. Nelson's a friend of Nichol Kessinger, and the two exchanged text messages about the relationship between Kessinger and Chris Watts. Now, what's quite interesting with the timing of this is, I think we've spoken before about the 7-page typed document that Nichol Kessinger handed in, and I believe this was handed in on the 4th of September. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think it's the 4th of September. And so this happens apparently the very next day, or the same day. Anyway, around the same time. And I think it's possible that that document led to this interview. If that makes sense. According to Stacey Galbraith, she says, I was provided a packet of text messages involving a certain number, which was that of Shanann Watts. Okay, and then it goes to she called Charlotte Nelson, and she said the texting is on, this is quite important, the 12th of August. So all these texts are on the last Sunday that the Watts family was basically intact, and this is kind of the flip side to the premeditation texts. These texts were all sent, instead of between Chris Watts and a colleague, sent by his mistress to her friend, talking about a relationship with Watts on the very last day that things were, before things went haywire. She says, I'm not certain of the time zone in which the records are formatted. And then she also says, it's difficult to say for sure if the texts are from Nikki or Charlotte, but the content lends to context and the author. And now we're going to look at them, and some of these texts are sort of quite graphic, quite explicit, but I guess we must just go through them. This is sent kind of mid-morning on the Sunday, right? From Nichol Kessinger to Charlotte, right? And she says, been kind of hanging out with a guy recently, keeping it a secret. Dude loves to eat pussy, never met a man who does it till now. I just let it happen, LOL. Now, so much is revealed in that statement. I mean, maybe more than you want to hear, like too much information kind of thing. But just besides that, there are people who say they were in a relationship for a long time. And, she Googled Chris Watts or Shanann in 2017, etc., etc. If you believe that, why on earth would she say recently here? And if you think about it, it was recent because they'd been hanging out for the previous month, for kind of July. So that is how it was recent. I don't think you'd be saying, I've been hanging out with the guy recently, if all of this speculation is true that it had been going on since 2017. Just don't think just doesn't make any sense. Now you might say she was exaggerating to her friend, she was misleading her friend. I don't think so. I don't think she'd mislead her on the time and then also make a sort of statement in confidence saying, I'm keeping it a secret, which she was. She was keeping it a secret. So was he. And then saying something like, dude loves to eat pussy, you can see that I don't think this is something she would say to anybody. It's something she would only say to a close friend, right? And she also kind of says something kind of interesting. She says she's never met a man who does that till now, which is perhaps kind of sad. Anyway, Charlotte responds, where did you meet this man? Right? And this is on the 12th. This is on the 12th, 5 minutes after her text. Now, that's the other aspect, is bear in mind, Charlotte doesn't even know about this guy. And now the question is, if Kessinger was with him since 2017, wouldn't she have told Charlotte earlier? Why would she have waited a year? Whereas if she just kind of started going out with him, just started her affair with him in like basically the month of July, then wouldn't it make sense sort of now to tell her about him? Now that things were kind of going up a level, now that he was about to announce that he's going to get divorced. Bear in mind, the previous night, this is Sunday morning, the previous night they went on kind of a date at the Lazy Dog, and he told her, okay, our divorce is finalized, or I'm finalizing our divorce. That was part of the takeout. And of course, what he meant by that was, in terms of his own inner narrative, is I am going to get rid of my family. What he was communicating to her is, the divorce is happening, you're not going to need to worry about my family. And that was him already resigned to what he was going to do. Does that make sense? Then around about 19 minutes later, at 11:15, she talks about her ex-boyfriend. And then Charlotte responds, I don't think it's you, man. Some guys are lame with that stuff. And all of this sounds like a pair of friends who are quite intimately, they know the intimate details of one another, right? They confidence of one another. And then we go to 2 minutes after that, Charlotte says, let's repeat it from that one. Oh, so anyway, at 17 minutes past 11, Nikki says, feel like every dude I meet has kids these days, and if they don't, they have commitment issues or some BS like Sean. Now, this is what Agent Kevin Kobach was referring to about, were you feeling uncomfortable about the fact that he had kids? So she didn't say to Charlotte, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that Watts has got children. She said, kind of in a complaining way, kind of in a frustrated way, kind of in a concerned way. Every guy that I meet has children, and if they don't have children, they've got commitment issues. Or there's some BS like Sean. Now, whatever that BS is, I think there was some talk that she felt that he was abusive and so on. But obviously, that is what I think she liked about Chris Watts, was that he didn't intimidate her. He seemed kind. He seemed to listen. He seemed gentle. But he has kids. And so she's bringing that up right here. It feels like every dude I meet has kids these days. And she's in her, I think, early 30s, right? And that is the case. I mean, I know the feeling as well. I'm a single guy, and it's almost impossible to meet someone beyond a certain age that doesn't have children. It's virtually impossible. It's virtually just very, very difficult. And Kessinger's now in that situation. She's trying to deal with it. She's trying to make peace with the fact that he's got children, trying to find out whether it's a big deal. And it is a thing worth thinking about, right? Charlotte responds, what's the dude's name? Kids are cute, Ming. It's a package deal, though. So this is, again, just proof that Charlotte knows her quite well, right? The way that she calls her Ming. And Ming is from the sort of Kessinger part of her name. So that's kind of a nickname for her, Ming, right? The fact that she asks, what's the dude's name? She doesn't even know what's his name, even though Kessinger's been going out with him for a month. It shows you she has kept it secret, and also it's very unlikely that this has been going on for a year. Just very, very unlikely. And her best friend wouldn't even know her boyfriend's name. It's reached the point now, after about 5-6 weeks, that it's serious enough for Kessinger to say, and it looks like he's going to get divorced, now I can mention him to my best friend, right? I'm now ready. I feel it's reached that point where we are serious enough. I'm serious enough about him. and now I'm going to let my friend know about this affair that I've been having. Not necessarily affair, but relationship. Of course, it is an affair, but she hasn't really brought that up. The fact that Charlotte says kids are cute, Meng, means I think Nikki must have sent a photo of the children to Charlotte. And then Charlotte says it's a package deal. And we all know what that means. And that is what Nikki's wrestling with. But look at the date. It's the 12th of August. It's 9 minutes past 1. On that Sunday, she's thinking, basically, do I want this package deal? Do I want this? Every guy I meet has got kids. Is that going to be an issue for me? And Watts is also aware of that. Watts is like, I want to be with you, and I perceive that my family is a problem. Maybe I must get rid of them. That's what's going on in his mind. That's going on in his inner dialogue. And of course, he's desperate for the relationship to work because he's hooked on Kessinger. And I think part of the reason he's hooked on Kessinger is the 5 weeks that they've been apart, him and Shanann. He's really felt himself come alive again. I think if his marriage to Shanann wasn't so bad, the affair with Kessinger wouldn't have felt so good. Anyway, Charlotte says, that's awesome, Meng. I'm not quite sure what that's about. Anyway, Nikki said, maybe it's in response to this text, although the timing seems a bit off, but Nikki says to Charlotte, the fact he takes care of his kids is a good thing, I think, right? And I think her response to that is, that's awesome. She also says he's all about his kids. Then Charlotte asked, that's cool, how old are they? And then we go to Discovery page 714 at 1:45. This is very close to the time that Watts and the children are going to go to the birthday party. Nikki says 33, I think, and that's correct. Chris Watts was 33 and Shanann 34. Nichol Kessinger, sure, I feel a bit embarrassed. I think she's like 31 years old, but I could be wrong. But definitely younger than Shanann. And then at 9 minutes to 2, she again reinforces that feeling of frustration and uncertainty and hesitation. She says, I just feel like I will always be second place, like he's been there, done that, right? And this is really important because she'd actually expressed this before, and Chris Watts brought it up as well. I think it's mentioned in Sherilyn Cadle's book as well that Watts is very aware that Kessinger didn't like being second. And it kind of makes sense. It makes sense that if you're in an affair with someone, of course you're going to feel like you're second. You are second until that person gets a divorce. And that is why it was so kind of important for Watts to demonstrate he was getting a divorce, and of course he wasn't. But she said, I will always be second place, like he's been there, done that. In other words, he's had a family, he's got children, and I'm going to kind of come in the back door and just be sort of part of the furniture. And so she's definitely expressing doubts, hesitation, and she's also saying he is very kind to me. You know, he's treating me quite well compared to some of the other guys. But now take this statement here at 9 minutes to 2. I just feel like I'll always be second place, like he's been there, done that. Right? So if they get together and they have a family, for him it'll just be doing the same thing, going through the motions for a second time. And I should actually show it to you guys, but in his letter to Kessinger, I think he wrote it on the 29th of July or so, just before he left Colorado to go to North Carolina. He mentions the word first over and over again. He talks about, we had this first and that first, so many firsts with you. And he's obviously emphasizing it because he knows it was a priority for her. So if you look at these two texts in conjunction with one another, feel like every dude I meet has kids these days. I just feel like I'll always be second place. You can see how on that very last day, the 12th of August, the Sunday, Kessinger's still undecided about what, and that's making him nervous. He's trying to keep her, he's trying to make the relationship permanent, he's trying to seal the deal, if you can put it like that. And the thing that is giving Nichol Kessinger, kind of the heebie-jeebies, is the fact that the Watts family are sort of coming back together. The children have returned from North Carolina. She's experienced what that's like, right? She hasn't been able to really spend that much time with him on the Saturday. Not only that, the days leading up to that when he's been at home with the kids and Shanann. And now Shanann's going to be returning as well, and this is the source of her anxiety. And then Nikki talks kind of quite openly about what she likes about Watts, and this is at 9 minutes to 2. He works out, so he's super sexy, so that's kind of a big reason why she likes him. He's fit, he's in shape, they've got a sexual relationship. That comment about eating pussy's really got more to do with that she enjoys sex with him. He's a giving lover, sounds like he's someone who satisfied her sexually, if I can put it that way. And so that's something that she enjoys. That's something that I think he enjoyed. And then Nikki says, and this is it, at 2 minutes to 2, she says, "Don't tell nobody. I haven't made up my mind on him yet." And that was the thing, that was Watts' curse, was the fact that he had definitely made up his mind about her. Now, of course, bear in mind, if Kessinger had given him her key on the 8th, and we know for a fact that he went to her apartment on the 8th, between, I think, 3 and 4:30, that was prior to attending the ultrasound with Shanann. That was when he got the key. That suggests she kind of had made up her mind on him. But I think the reality is she kind of hadn't. He was still in his marriage, and they were still having to keep it secret, which is why she's undecided. But her telling Charlotte is kind of the first step to kind of thinking, you know what, I think we're going to keep going with this and see what happens, right? So it's quite serious, but she hasn't quite made up her mind. And what he would do hours later, I mean, literally almost 10 hours after this particular text, he was killing Shanann to help her make up her mind, wasn't he? And then Nikki actually says something that's very prescient. She says, like, he seems too good to be true. He seems to be good to be true, and that's exactly what he was. When Watts did the sermon on the porch, it was too good to be true. When Watts spoke to Agent Coda what he said was too good to be true. When he confessed, even that story was, as bad as it was too good to be true. Meaning, it's not really a good example, but in terms of his culpability, Shanann doing half of the crime was too good to be true in terms of what he'd actually done. What he'd done was a lot worse, and it turned out to be a lot worse. And then quite a long time later, this is basically when Watts was at the birthday party and the children were at the birthday party. She says, "Ha ha, yeah, it's the best sex I've ever had and I'm hooked." That kind of summarizes what's going on. That the reason that it's such a powerful relationship, the reason that she's not thinking properly and he's not thinking properly, is because of the sex. Because the sex is so good. And it was quite a lot of sex. It's sometimes, I think it was 4 times a day. And that is what, it's almost like being addicted to a drug. You don't think properly. But it's not only the best sex she's ever had and she's hooked. She can't make up her mind. And that's what's driving him crazy. He wants to help her make up her mind. And she finally says, just before 3 p.m., "I think he really likes me," and he did. In fact, I think she knew that he actually loved her, and he'd said that. He said he loved her, and she said the same thing to him. And I don't think that's an exaggeration from either of them. I think for the time that they knew each other, and because of the sex and because of their respective relationships with other people, her with Sean, him with Shanann, they both did fall in love with one another. They needed someone that they felt they could trust after feeling they'd been betrayed in some way, and they needed someone who would be gentle and kind to them after someone else had been not necessarily nice to them. And so that's why I think they got along quite well. And so if we go on through Stacey Galbraith's interview with Charlotte, I left Nelson a message and texted her. Kessinger is Nelson's best friend. So you're not even getting this from Kessinger. Nelson herself is saying, Nichol Kessinger is my best friend. That's something that I think is quite interesting, is that although Kessinger's disappeared off the face of the earth, no one seems to have tried to find Charlotte Nelson. Charlotte Nelson hasn't really come forward to talk about her friend. In fact, no one has. Maybe that's a sign of great friendship. I don't know. Probably. Nelson knew why I would be contacting her. I asked how this case is sitting with her. She told me it is a horrible situation and very upsetting. She's worried about Kessinger. I wouldn't be surprised if she still is. Nelson said that Kessinger got caught up with the wrong person at the wrong time, and it's just devastating. I asked if Nelson knew that Kessinger had been dating Chris Watts. Nelson explained that Kessinger was working as a contractor for Anadarko. Kessinger told Nelson that she was seeing a guy at work at some point. So it's not actually established when. Kessinger did not say who, and Nelson never met him. And then let's just go a little bit further. Kessinger told Nelson that the guy she was seeing had a couple of kids. Nelson knew Kessinger to like kids, and she seemed in favor of it. Kessinger said he was a really nice guy, and she did not seem to mind that he had kids. Well, she sort of did mind. Nelson said that she did not say much, as she tends to let people live their lives. Nelson did not think it was smart of Kessinger to date someone she worked with, since she liked her job, but Nelson did not tell Kessinger that. That's kind of unfortunate, perhaps. I asked Kessinger I asked if Kessinger spoke of the guy's marital status. Kessinger did not at the time, but Kessinger has since told Nelson that the guy had told Kessinger that he was separated from his wife. So what Charlotte is saying is that when she first found out about the guy, Chris Watts, she didn't say that she was married, and there's nothing about him being married in those texts, right? Kessinger did not provide Nelson details of the relationship as to where they spent time, when they spent time, how they spent time, or if they were intimate. Well, there is a little bit about the intimacy, right, in those texts. She said that she did not know and she did not ask. Nelson said Kessinger just got out of a relationship and Nelson just lets her tell her what she wants to share. Nelson described Kessinger as private. I told Nelson, that's kind of a weird statement to make, given that Kessinger would send nude selfies of herself, but maybe she means besides in a relationship sense. I don't know. It's difficult to say. I told Nelson that I had some content from text messaging between her and Kessinger. I read the one about it being the best sex Kessinger's ever had and the one about oral sex. Nelson reminded me that her dad died and she had been drinking heavily. She told me that she actually barely remembers the text with Kessinger. So this is quite interesting, is the agent is talking to Nelson, and Nelson is probably assuming that Kessinger did delete all her texts and that the law enforcement don't have anything. And so she's free to say, well, I didn't know if they were intimate. And Kessinger's a very private person, and that's why I don't know anything about her relationship. But then, after she said that, Stacey Galbraith then confronts Nelson and says, well, look at these text messages between you and Kessinger about the best sex and this and that kind of thing. And then Charlotte Nelson's response seems to be, well, my dad's just died and I've been drinking, so I kind of forgot about that. Nelson told me that Kessinger dates a lot in the past and has not had a lot of luck with men, and that's why she doesn't ask about details. Then she read this thing about, feels like every dude I meet has kids these days, and if they don't, they have commitment issues. I asked Nelson for some context to that text, as it seemed that a man with kids may be a negative thing based upon the words in the text alone. Nelson said that she does not think Kessinger was against him having kids, and Kessinger wants kids too. She has just had bad luck with men in the past. Kessinger wants to find someone, and when she does, it turns out to be the guy is lying or something, and once again that's happened. Kessinger seems to take it upon herself and feel like she's picking the wrong guys. Nelson encourages Kessinger that she will find someone. If I can just prognosticate on their relationship, to me it just seems like they got intimate way too quickly. And because of that, neither of them thought very clearly. They didn't take, especially from Kessinger's perspective, didn't take a longer time to get to know him, and also didn't think about some of the consequences in a kind of a sober way, like, do I really want to have a relationship with a guy from work? Because look what happened. She lost her job over that. I mean, amongst all the other devastating consequences. Nelson did not think that Kessinger actually met the guy's kids. She has no idea when or where Kessinger and the guy hung out together. Nelson figured that if it was working out, she would hear more about the guy. Now we go to page 717. Kessinger did not tell Nelson anything about the guy's wife in their texts. I asked how Kessinger is doing. Nelson told me she's a mess and says she cannot say much about the case. Sorry, Nelson thinks Kessinger feels partly responsible, as maybe he went crazy because Kessinger came into the picture. That's quite an authentic statement. Kessinger liked the guy, that's also true, Nelson thinks Kessinger needs a good therapist. I asked if there's any indication that Kessinger may want to maintain a relationship with the guy. Nelson said that Kessinger wants to cooperate in the fullest to make sure he stays in jail. I thanked Nelson for her time and she agreed to send me screenshots. And then she sent this email. And I'm not going to take that further. We're now going to just quickly go to the texts that are sent between Nichol Kessinger and Chris Watts. And there are not a lot of them. There are not a lot that survive, unfortunately. But we're just going to quickly read them. On the 12th of August, he says, nice. And this was obviously while he was at the birthday party. And something that I don't think the Lindstrom seemed to notice. They didn't seem to notice him texting. Or if they did, they didn't think anything of it. But he was obviously texting his mistress, not Shanann. So he texted Kessinger, nice, 2 exclamation marks. That sounds like a good time, exclamation mark. I haven't seen any IMAX in a while. Sounds like you're having a fun day with the folks, exclamation mark. I'm still at the birthday party. Kids are soaked from the water balloons. And then kind of an emoji. And, if you look at that effusiveness, the exclamation marks, the emoji, and you compare it to the sort of glum, drab, very limited exchanges he has with Shanann, there's not really much going on there. Also, if you imagine Chris Watts is like an emotionless psychopath, and you look at the emotion in those texts, just via the words and the exclamation marks, you can see, although outwardly he doesn't give much away, inwardly is feeling something. Then the next text sent at 4:07, also on that Sunday, been pounding fruit and had a whole jar of asparagus. He didn't smoke any barbecue this time. That's a reference to Jeremy Lindstrom. He did hot dogs, so I did the fruit and veggies. So seems like he was at a barbecue and actually didn't actually eat any of the barbecue somehow. Then the next text actually refers to something he sent while he was at Nathaniel Trnastich's home with the police right in front of him, standing next to the footage where he's actually moving at least one body to his truck, and he's actually texting Kessinger at that moment, and he says, oh my God, that is absolutely ridiculous. They would freak out, with like 5-6 exclamation marks. That's where his mind is. That is why he committed the crime, because he's just completely besotted with her. One of the rare texts that survived from Kessinger is she kind of lets him know, no, you can't buy the scrolls, and that's a reference to the Dead Sea Scrolls. She says the Dead Sea Scrolls are some of the oldest, most important writing in the world, which I think just shows Watts is a bit of a dunce. There's certain obvious things that he just doesn't know about, right? And now if you go to the next set of texts, I had a protein shake before I left, and this is from the 4th of July. I thought there would be more there. I'm resisting the funnel cakes and tater twists, LOL. He also says, I'm stopped in traffic. Lots of people here, just pulled up to your place. And then at 11:09 in the morning on the 9th of July, Kessinger says, you're so considerate. I'm not quite sure what that refers to. Then the next text he says, I hope it's 2:30. You need some rest, boo. And I think that is, it's the same term of endearment he used sometimes to his wife as well. Kessinger responds, are we bad people? And then Chris Watts says, I'd love to be part of it. Being in your life is something I crave. That's, I think, just a genuine statement. That's absolutely how he feels. think about when you crave something, you're sort of desperate for it. On the 1st of July, he says at 9:23 p.m. So this is quite early on. He says, "I enjoyed our conversation tonight. I hope you have a great night. Sweet dreams, Nikki." And then a sort of kissy emoticon. And then in the next one, it's kind of more sexual. He says, "I like to see you all wet in the rain." And then there are a couple of texts from her where she says, "I have an idea. I have a free hot stay at the Holiday Inn. Not sure if you can swing it this month, but we can road trip to the mountain." And this is the last day of June. Won't cost a dime. Okay, and when she says she supports me, but her parents are in a situation like that, I think that might be a reference to Charlotte Nelson, where she says, "I made up my mind, are we bad people?" Sounds like she's decided, okay, let's do it, let's have an affair, let's keep doing this, right? And then the final one, and this is text from June, also text between Watts and Kessinger. Sorry that they're a bit out of order, but he says, "Promise, exclamation mark. I'm about loyalty, truthfulness, and being dedicated. I don't like playing games unless it's role playing." And I do think that there was a bit of role playing in their sexual relationship. From some of the audio that we've heard from her, it sounds like she would like pretend to be a schoolgirl or something. And that's quite interesting, just because there were a lot of schoolgirls that had crushes on Watts, but he never knew how to respond. And so maybe that's a little bit living out his fantasy in that sense. "If you want me there, I will be there. Ice cream, cookies, and lollipops sound like a cheat meal night, LOL." And so this is the level at which their relationship is sort of held. It's sex, it's food, it's companionship, it's making commitment to one another. It's kind of light-hearted. It's effusive. He's emotional, she's emotional. It's passionate. On the 29th of June, and I think this is close to, I think he'd just come back from San Diego. He says, "I'm still going to see you. It won't be as often as we like, but I will make it happen. You think you're the only one addicted right now? I'm so hooked on you." Now bear in mind, he's sending this 1 month, like with a whole month ahead of them, where they would still have sex, where he would see her all the time, where he would come and sleep at her house almost every day in July. So the addiction looks like very immediate for both of them. Then he also says, "Sleeping without your warm body next to me isn't going to be fun tonight." And I think very quickly, they had encounters with one another, and very quickly they had that sense of, "I don't want to be without you. I want to spend every moment I can with you." I think we all know what that feeling is like when you're desperately in love with someone. Every moment you're not with someone, you feel wounded. And often with a person like that, you want to marry them because you feel like, "I don't want someone else to be with you. I want to be with you. You're like a treasure. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." And that seems to be the sense that he's feeling, but very, very early on. And obviously, some of it's based on lust, some of it's based on love, but it's not like a tried and tested love. And I think some of it's based on just inexperience, like, "I've never felt this before, and I don't know what to do with it." And we know what he ultimately did. Okay, I'm not going to take things further than that. It's a historic time right now. We're about to find out the results of a very important election in America. So I'm going to let you guys go. Let's hold thumbs that the right result emerges, and see what happens. Thanks for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.